So it sounds a little bit like the ocean is outside, but it's actually right here. I want to show you a picture of the ocean. This is the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of South Carolina. And it's just a picture taken with my cell phone one day on vacation, kind of walking fairly early in the morning, almost nobody else on the beach, and it was great. And I was just kind of captured that day again as a way of things like the ocean can do or Lake Michigan can do, or you just see it and you can be overwhelmed with just how big it really is, again, right? I mean, it looks like, if you look out at the ocean, it looks like you are in the Truman Show. If you remember the old movie, The Truman Show, it looks like if you go far enough, there's probably a wall and you're really inside of a dome, and somebody's been filming your life. But just, it looks forever big. It just kind of stretches out, and it's so wide. I mean, it's as wide as you can see, right? I mean, I could have walked the beach forever, right? I mean, it's this endless reality. We sometimes, while we're at the ocean, we on occasion like to get in, especially my daughter, Mackenzie. She loves to get in, and because Mackenzie loves to get in the ocean, I, by default, love to get in the ocean because I want to be where Ken's is a lot of the time and where the girls are. And so it's been, fairly common over the years for us to get into the ocean, but you do have to be aware before you get in the ocean of flags. You got to understand the flags, okay? The flags, they mean something. They're actually there for a reason. Now, the red flag at the ocean, the red flag is, hey, the water's a little dangerous right now. Okay, the riptide's pretty strong. You can get pulled away pretty easily. It can be just a little bit dangerous. Now, we're fairly used to that, and that can happen in lots of bodies of water. Okay, but it's like this little warning that's there. Just for point of reference, when Hurricane or Tropical Storm Dorian was coming through, I found a picture. It was double reds. If it's double reds on the beach at the ocean, swimming is forbidden. Forbidden, okay? And the picture that I happened to see online, there was somebody in the water. So I don't know what it actually means, but I hope that person is still alive. So the blue flag, though, was a new one to us this year. This was a new thing for us. The blue flag actually means there's dangerous animal life in the water fairly near the shore, okay? That can be combinations of things. Actually, a year ago, our other daughter, Sydney, actually was stung by a jellyfish. We had never had that happen before. We had never seen it before. Let me just say, dear God, don't ever let us see it again, okay? It's not fun. It was painful. It looks gross. I mean, it's an awful thing. There had also been, within a handful of miles of where we were at, there had also been sharks in the water nearby. There had been a picture posted, somebody in a resort taking a picture from way up towards the top of the resort, taking a picture kind of near the shore, and people in the ocean and nearby them that they can't see, but you can see from up high, there are sharks around them, okay? I think you should go get in the ocean right now. But so that's like, okay, like you got to know what you're up against, okay? You got to know. And here's the deal. The ocean it's full of adventure. It's full of fun. It's great fun to get out there and dive into waves and ride on waves and maybe boogie board. And if you went to the other coast, you can even surf. And there is so much fun to be had, and it's beautiful, and you want to take it in, and it's captivating. But you got to understand too that sometimes there's some flags that you got to pay attention to. Sometimes there's some flags that are saying, okay, let's just slow this down. Let's think about it before we jump in. Let's decide how we're going to engage the opportunity. But hopefully, let's not lose the opportunity. Let's not miss the opportunity. There are a lot of parts about following Jesus that are actually the same. There are a lot of parts about following Jesus that are full of wide open opportunity. They're full of adventure, and they're full of fun. They're full of things that can be refreshing and reinvigorating. And oftentimes we get confused because those very same things can have some challenges in them. They can have some opposition. They can have some warning flags, not to prohibit us from going, but just say, look, while the opportunity is wide, there can be some things that can get a little bit challenging here. There can be some strong currents that you're going to have to push against. There can be some things that you need to be aware of doing this. It's not that you shouldn't. In fact, you should. But let's not be confused and think that we're stepping into the ocean and it's going to be like the lazy river. Right? That's even true in one of the most fundamental things that Jesus said to his early followers and that he says to us. And we find it recorded in the book of John, this letter, this document that accounts the life of Jesus. There's this guy named John, and he's recording some of Jesus. We're kind of getting closer to the end of Jesus' life on earth, and Jesus makes this statement. He looks at his closest followers. He looks at people just like you and me, and this is what he says. He says, as the Father sent me from heaven to earth to go reach people with a message that can completely change their lives, as the Father sent me from heaven to earth with a message of love and hope and transformation and eternity and peace, I am sending you. I am sending you. Jesus looks at people like you and me and says, man, same way the Father sent me to you, I'm sending you. I'm sending you to the people around you. I'm sending you as a missionary into your workplace and into your neighborhood and into your school and into the teams that you're on and the clubs that you're in. And I'm sending you. I'm sending you. I'm sending you into the ocean, and the opportunity is really big because the world is full of people. The opportunity is huge, and it could be a lot of fun. It can feel a lot of times like riding the wave and being in the right kind of current and enjoying it. It can feel refreshing. But listen, there are also some challenges. There are also some challenges. We talk about this reality a lot around here of live sent. Like we live as people who carry the person of Jesus, and we are invited. In fact, we are called to share him. When Jesus first intersects with people and he calls them to follow him, one of the first things he often says is, hey, come and follow me, and I'm actually going to help you go find other people who need to follow me. That's one of the first things. It's not later, it's not future. It's like from the moment we begin following Jesus, he said, hey, let's go live sent together. Let's go live this. So we talk about it a lot around here. For 12 years, probably 80% of the time that I've been in a meeting with people who are engaged in something or leading something around here, one of the questions that we lead with a lot is, hey, where are you seeing life change? Where are you seeing people's lives be changed by Jesus? And I say all the time, if the answer becomes nowhere, then we're done. We're just shutting this thing down. There's lots of other places and reasons and causes that we can gather and feel good about ourselves, right? We gather because we're people who live sent. We live following the person of Jesus and responding to his call and his adventure of living sent. Recently, I was in one of those settings, and there were 7 other people in the room, and I just said, hey, where are you seeing life change stories? And often in that kind of environment, you don't end up with time for all 7 people to share. In this particular setting, 3 people were able to share. And listen, it was so inspiring. I mean, you could have peeled this off the ceiling. Here's what happened. The 3 people who shared all shared stories about living sent, about taking the person of Jesus to people they had unique friendship opportunities with and people they had an opportunity to share some life with, about people they were working with, colleagues and people they built relationships with, and now we're getting an opportunity to talk about the person of Jesus and what Jesus could mean for their life. And it was this incredible thing of saying, oh man, look, we're actually living. That's normal. The normal thing for us is to live sent because that's what Jesus looked at us and said. That's what Jesus said. Hey, look, come follow me and I'll help you fish for other people. Hey, I want you to have my peace, but I'm giving you my peace so that I could send you as the Father sent me. And while it's fun, it can also honestly be challenging. There's a guy named Paul who wrote so much of what we have as the New Testament of your Bible. It's all these letters that he's writing to different groups of people and places that he had started churches and places that maybe he hoped to start a church one day or somebody else had. And he's writing to encourage them. And he's writing to a particular group of people in a place called Corinth. And this is what he's talking about his time in Ephesus, and he wants to go see these other people, but he's like, man, I really got to hang out in Ephesus, and I want you to see why. 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verses 8 and 9. Here's what Paul says. Here's how he plays it out. We're going to look at a few different translations of the Bible. He says, I want to come to you, but I'm going to stay in Ephesus until Pentecost, this time that would come after the resurrection, right? For a wide door of effective work. The ocean is wide. The opportunity in front of me is wide. There's a wide opportunity for me to keep carrying the story and the person of Jesus to the people around me. It's everywhere. And there are some flags fly. There are some adversaries. There are some red and blue flags. I've got a wide open opportunity, but man, there are also some things that are working against me and seem to be pushing against me. But I'm going to stay here because I would not forfeit a wide opportunity. Look at another translation. I like it, just kind of unpacking it a little bit. But I'm going to stay here in Ephesus until Pentecost because a wide door for effective service of Jesus in these people has opened to me in Ephesus, a very promising opportunity. A very promising opportunity to continue to invest Jesus into the lives of people there who don't yet know him. And at the same time, there are many adversaries. Look at one more, the Message translation. I love this. It's just a paraphrase, idea for idea. For the present, I'm going to stay right here. A huge door of opportunity for good work has opened up here where I am. But oh, by the way, parenthetically, there is also mushrooming opposition. How great is it the Bible has the word mushrooming, right? Mushrooming opposition, right? It's just this ever-expanding thing that's in front of me. Like, listen, there's wide open opportunity, but there are adversaries. There's wide open opportunity. There's wide open opportunity to get in the ocean, but there are flags that are flying. There is wide open opportunity when Jesus says, look, I want to help you live sent. I'm inviting you to live sent. I'm inviting you to live in and on my mission. And there's no gray about it. He's not wondering about it. Right? But so many of you are doing that. And I just think Jesus wants to encourage you today in saying, look, it's the right thing, but when it's hard, it's okay because I'm giving you a warning that it's going to be hard. I got some flags up. Don't stay out of the ocean, but just know. Just know there's opposition to this. There's adversaries. I want to just read for you a little bit. You don't have to try and turn here if you don't want, but Acts chapter 19, I want to just read for you a little bit. Here's what happens when Paul says there's opposition. Here's a small window into what Paul is talking about. He's in Ephesus, and he's been making a difference. People are responding. People are literally surrendering their lives to Jesus. They're following him, and it's changing everything. It's changing all of their conduct. It's changing their heart. It's changing their motives. And it says about this time there arose a great disturbance. If you are turning there, I started in verse 23. About that time there arose a great disturbance about the way, or that's what these people were called, the way of following Jesus. A silversmith named Demetrius, who made silver shrines of Artemis, who was the god that the Ephesians were worshiping. They'd made all these idols to. And they brought in a lot of business for the craftsmen there. He called them together along with the workers in related trades and said, you know, my friends, that we receive a good income from this business, and you see and hear how this fellow Paul has convinced and led astray large numbers of people in Ephesus and in practically the whole province of Asia. He said that gods made by human hands are no gods at all. There's a danger not only that our trade will lose its good name, but also that the temple of the great goddess Artemis will be discredited, and the goddess herself who is worshipped throughout the province of Asia and the world will be robbed of her divine majesty. Do you hear what the first tension of the day was? Jesus started doing something in people's lives that changed where and how they spent their money. It messed marginally with commerce for the day, and people are freaking out. This Jesus guy, oh my word, it's one thing to just add him to a list of gods. It's another, they're starting to actually change the way they live. Jesus is changing who they are. This is unbelievable, right? So when they heard this, they were furious and began shouting, great is Artemis of the Ephesians. And soon the whole city was in an uproar. And the people seized Gaius and Artemis and Paul's traveling companion from Macedonia, and all of them rushed to the theater together. They're basically starting a riot. Paul wanted to appear before the crowd, but the disciples said, that's probably not a good idea. That's a double red flag, Paul. Okay. Verse 31, even some of the officials of the province, friends of Paul, sent him a message begging him not to venture into the theater. And the assembly was in confusion, and some were shouting one thing and some another, and most of the people didn't even know why they were there in the first place. The Jews in the crowd pushed Alexander to the front, and they shouted instructions to him. He motioned for silence in order to make a defense before the people. But when they realized he was a Jew, they all shouted in unison for about 2 hours. Great It's Artemis of the Ephesians. And it goes on to talk about this building little potential riot that's happening, and Paul's life is in danger, and the other followers of Jesus, their lives are in danger, and there's all of this tension. But this is the place Paul just said, I have a wide open opportunity. Man, the ocean is wide and it looks inviting, but I'm going to go in knowing, I'm going to live sent knowing that there are some red flags and some blue flags flying. I'm going to go in knowing that not everybody's going to like it, that not all of culture is going to like it. I'm going to go in knowing that there's a very real enemy of Jesus named Satan, and him and all of his demons and all of those principalities, they're working against this very thing. They're working against it, and I'm going to at times bump into them. Because the opportunity is wide, but the adversaries are many. Let's just talk about it for a minute. What does it mean for us? What's wide open to us? If we were to write what Paul wrote, if we were to survey our own life, if we were to look at saying, hey, look, this is our opportunity to live sent, which again, so many of you are doing. So many of us are just saying, Jesus, who have you put in our lives that you've just called us to love and to share your life and your story with? Who have you called us to serve in a way that gives us an opportunity to share your life and your story with people? What are the opportunities for us? Wide open for us. There's a lot of things that are wide open for us. Wide open is the opportunity to watch people continue to give their lives to Jesus, to find life and salvation and hope in him. And not just life somewhere off in the distance, but a growing capacity for the fullness of life right now. Healing, literally watching people be healed. Physically, emotionally, relationally, mentally be healed. People being restored and relationships being put back together and having new opportunities and the depth of redemption that comes with that. That's wide open opportunity in front of us, because those are the kinds of things that Jesus is doing. The opportunity to give ourselves away, the opportunity to give away our own preferences and our own conveniences for the sake of living on mission with Jesus. It's a wide open opportunity in front of us, because that's what Jesus did. That's the opportunity he invites us into. That's the adventure of the ocean that he invites us into. It's wide open in front of us. It's wide open in front of you. It's wide open in front of me. It's wide open in front of you in your neighborhood and in your workplace and in your school and in your social circles and the stores that you visit and that you frequent. It's going to be wide open to some of you this afternoon when you go to a restaurant or you go grab something on the way. It's there. It's in front of us. It's wide open. But let's also be honest and say, what are the adversaries? In fact, what are the adversaries that are actually kind of behind the chief adversary? Listen, every adversarial thing that we find in this, everything that we bump into in this, it's really like that's part of the design of Satan, who's this arch enemy of Jesus, right? It's not just random. It's not just like, oh, I never saw that coming. But if Paul says, look, I got a wide open opportunity, but I've also got some things that are pushing against me, what are they? Sometimes it's some easy to miss things. It's like distraction. It's easy to miss the ocean. It's easy to miss how wide the ocean really is, because we just get distracted by our own comforts and our own conveniences. It's easy to miss the wide open opportunity to take Jesus to the lives of people around us, because we just get distracted by our own comforts and our own conveniences. Maybe closely connected to that sometime is just this idea of discouragement. Sometimes we're not distracted by our comforts and conveniences and protecting those and accumulating those. Sometimes we might just get distracted by our own discouragement from our own chaos or from our crisis in life, which are very real things. It happens, right? We get a setback. We get knocked back a little bit. We get thrown off somewhere. We get thrown a curveball, something we didn't see coming comes at us, and it can throw us off for a little bit. Sometimes it's just our own fears. It's just our own fears. Do you know why I think it's so important that we sing songs that talk about Jesus overcoming fear? Is because fear is just so amazingly common in most of us. Right? And it can cause us to miss. I mean, the flag could be yellow, and we look at it and say it's double red. And so we're the ones that we actually, I can't do it. What if it doesn't work? Or what if I get it wrong? Or what if I invest in this relationship for a long time, and then at the end of the day, these people reject Jesus, and I mean, I don't know, we were still loving. We still loved people. We still, right? Sometimes it's just blatant, outward, overt, spiritual attack. Sometimes it just is. Sometimes it's just the enemy of Jesus, who by default becomes the enemy of us, just upping the ante and coming after us. Our wide open opportunities as a church has really been on the invitation of Jesus to say, what's it look like if we launch 5 locations in 10 years? And so now for like 2 years, we've been trying to launch the first one in Middleville, right? And you can have setback, and you can look at delay, and you can say, what about, and everything else. And then somewhere along the way, you look at enough of those, and you say, no, wait a second, that's spiritual. That's not just the natural course, that's spiritual. You can almost look at a fire and say, fires happen or whatever. How many times do fires in fairly small communities happen in 2 fairly thriving, life-giving churches in a relatively short period of time? How many times can you bump into things that should be simple, and all of a sudden they're remarkably confusing? And I'd say, wait a minute, all the people who are involved in that are really smart, and this is what they do for a living, and they've never been confused about this before, but now they are. Why is that? I'll just let you a little bit further into some of this. So for the past probably 15, 18 months or so, maybe it's give or take a little bit, almost to a person, our staff, Journey staff, has just taken relentless hit after relentless hit. Sometimes in families, so much of it has been like physical or mental, emotional. Some of it's just over and over and over and over and over and over again. And you're somewhere saying, now wait a second. Paul was right. Like the opportunity is wide, but the adversaries are many, and sometimes it feels like they're unrelenting. Just constant. So the bigger question isn't how far away can we get from the water? Okay, right? Because Jesus still said, look, I sent you. The only reason we're in this is because I sent you, right? So what do we do? What do we do with that? If the opportunity is wide, but the adversaries are many, if the opportunities even today are really wide for people like you and me to just be and share Jesus with people we're going to go home and live near this afternoon, or that we're going to work with tomorrow, or that we're going to pass or intersect with in stores, or that if the opportunities are wide, but the adversaries, what do we do with that? I'll just give you a couple of things, because we're going to get in the water. We're going to keep getting in the water. I'm going to give you a couple of things. Number one, we're always going to lead with praise. 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 Listen, the same Jesus who invited us into it is still the same Jesus who's bigger than all those adversaries. The same Jesus who invited us into it is still the same Jesus who rescues and who delivers. And so we're always going to lead with praise. In fact, the story of God over and over again in the lives of humanity, the balance starts to shift when we lead with praise. It's just how God has set this so we could see a way forward. So we don't come and just sing songs and just respond to a scripture and just toss in somebody. We do all of that out of this praise and this acknowledgement that, wait a minute, at the end of the day, this thing is about Jesus. He's still the answer. He's still our source. The same Jesus who would forgive us and rescue us is the same Jesus who could actually deliver us from the adversaries while we're living in the wide open opportunity. We're always going to lead with praise. We're going to lean in a little more through prayer and fasting. We're just going to lean in a little more and through prayer and fasting. And here's the deal with fasting. Fasting earns nothing from God. It earns nothing from God. You and I, we've never earned anything from God, and there's no magic tool to do it. Fasting earns nothing from God. Fasting just makes a spiritual statement that our complete and total dependence is on God. Fasting is only saying that at the end of the day, regardless of the adversary, regardless of the number of the adversary, regardless of the size of the adversary, regardless of what color that flag is, my dependence is on God. My answer is God himself. God, I am dependent on you. And when we get to that place, here's the freedom that comes with that. When we get to that place, here's the freedom. When we enter into like times of fasting and just denying ourselves food and saying, look, I'm going to disconnect from things from the world for a little bit so I can connect a little more with God. Here's the beauty of all of that. What we're doing is we're putting ourselves in a position where we get reminded, you know what? I actually don't even have to generate the answer. Oh, Jesus has always had the answer, and he's always going to have the answer. When I put myself in the position of fasting, all I'm really doing is just kind of putting myself under his answer again, saying, oh, look, over here, when the adversary strikes and the current starts taking the wrong direction, it gets really easy to try and fight harder, to push the other way and to come up with new answers and new ideas. And fasting is this little reminder that says, oh, no, wait a minute. Whew, I don't have to, thank God I don't have to come up with the answer. I do not have to come up with the way forward here. Jesus is my way forward, and I'll go in his direction, and he'll actually be my answer. He'll come up with the answer. So we're always going to lead with praise. We're going to lean in with prayer and fasting. And in fact, there were some of us, we can't put this together really quickly, and everybody got emails, but you might not have seen it because of how fast it happened. The first weekend of September, we spent Friday night and Saturday night and through Sunday morning just in some times in prayer and fasting. We're doing that again in the first part of October, the first part of November, first part of December. I want to invite you to be a part. I want to invite you to just say, hey, look, you know what? Jesus has invited me to live with him in his mission and in his story. Jesus looks at me just like he looked at his first disciples. Jesus looks at us collectively and says, man, just the same way the Father sent me, I'm sending you. But man, there are some challenges in that sometimes. And man, it feels like life is upside down right now. And I can barely get my head around that because of what it feels like I'm up against or underneath right now. And so I want to enter into this time of prayer, this time of fasting, just putting myself in a position to say, Jesus, actually, at the end of the day is the answer. If you want to be a part of that, or you even want some information on how to be a part of that, here's what I want to invite you to do right now in this moment, is to find that connection card that Joel talked about earlier and just put a P on there somewhere. Just put a P on it. It's not committing you to anything. It's just saying, I at least want more information on that, okay? If you mark the P and we give you the info and you don't come, you got to take it up with Jesus about whether or not you can still get into heaven. No, I'm just kidding. That's not true at all, okay? It's not true at all. Just put the P. Let us get you some info. Let us give you a chance, okay? And maybe you're just in a season of life, you'd say, I don't even know what to do, but man, I need an answer. I need something to shift. Maybe you're so a part of Journey and you're like, yes, man, we want to reach people. We are sent. We are on this mission. There are communities and people to be reached. People's eternities are hanging in the balance. I'll do whatever it takes to follow Jesus into that. That's part of it. That's just put a P on the card and we'll navigate. That's what we do. So what we do is we always lead with praise. We lean in with some prayer and fasting. We're saying, okay, this is how we move this forward. And then listen, and we get in the water. We get in the water. We live sent. And again, so many of you are already doing this. It's just, this is what's normal for us, right, as followers of Jesus. So many of you are already doing it. But it gets so hard. Maybe today you're just like, you know, it is hard. And sometimes there are adversaries. And sometimes the red and blue flag is flying. But I'm getting back in the water because the people I'm with are the people that I love. Man, I want them to know Jesus. Man, I want them to have a chance to know Jesus. So I'm getting in the water. I'm going to get in the water. And so maybe even today you go home and you just ask, hey, Jesus, I want to live sent. Would you help me? Would you help me see what you see and love like you love? Just today in my neighborhood, would you help me see what you see and love like you love? In a restaurant that I go to, would you help me see what you see and love like you love? Jesus, in my workplace tomorrow, would you help me see what you see and love like you love? I got a job to do. There's projects in front of me. There's tasks in front of me. There's a checklist in front of me. There's a paycheck to earn. But Jesus, would you help me see what you see and love like you love? When I go to school tomorrow and I walk into a hallway or I walk into a classroom, Jesus, would you help me see what you see and love how you love? That's where it begins. Jesus, would you help me see what you see and love how you love? That's getting in the water. That's getting in the water. And that's what over time leads to the stories of people saying, oh man, after 5 years, I got to have this conversation with my coworker and we got to go to lunch and we've been just kind of around the bushes for 5 years. And then we're sitting at lunch and he's asking me all of these questions about this Jesus and why I follow Jesus and what that's. And it all started 5 years ago. It's just, Jesus, would you help me see what you see and love how you love? Jesus, would you help me see what you see and love how you love? We're going to live sent. That's what we're going to do. We're going to live sent. We're going to lean into this all the way. Now here's the question we got to ask, right? So why? What happened? What happened for Paul then, and what would happen for us now? What happened to Paul then? What happens for us now? I mean, if we're really going to do it, I mean, Paul almost lost his life in a riot, right? I mean, his friends had to tell him like that. So what are we really going to do in that? What's really happening in that? I want you to see part of why Paul stayed. It's a little bit sooner in chapter 19. Chapter 19, verse 20. This is what happened. Let's put this up here for you. This is Paul, this is him explaining what's really happening in this thing. He said, I got all these adversaries. But remember this wide opportunity? So what's really happening all around me is the word of the Lord continued to increase and prevail mightily. The word of the Lord continued to increase and prevail mightily. The word of the Lord continued to increase and prevail mightily. Do you know what's not in there? I, Paul, continued to increase and prevail mightily. I, John, continued to increase and prevail mightily, right? And that's yet sometimes the pressure we put on ourselves. Paul, oh no, at the end of the day, it was the story of Jesus that continued to increase and prevail mightily. In spite of all these adversaries, the opportunity was so wide. And part of the reason the opportunity was wide is because it's the word of the Lord that continued to increase and prevail mightily. And so Paul says, I'm going in. I'm going in because I've got this safety net of that it's actually Jesus. It's actually his story. It's actually his might. It's actually his strength. I've got the safety net in all of this. So Kenzie and I, when we were at the ocean and it was wide and it felt like we had this wide opportunity, but there's this red and this blue flag going, we went in. We went in. I'm not 100% sure it was smart, but we went in. But let me tell you why I actually think it ended up being smart, okay? We had a little bit of a cheat. We had a little bit we had a little bit that we had this safety net that it really wasn't just about us. These people we were staying with, they had this thing. It's called a shark bands, and you put it around your ankle, right? And you put it on, and just obscenely strong magnet on the front of that. And somehow people who are way smarter than me have figured out that if you get enough frequency coming out of the magnet, it actually repels the sharks. It actually keeps this thing around there. So I put that thing on and I said to Ken's, do your best to stay close. You're on your own, okay? I actually put it on her, okay? I actually put it on her, and I stayed as close as I humanly could. I just stayed as close as I could. I'm like, I have no idea how far this range is or whatever else, but put this thing on. And you know what it gives? It gives all this peace of mind. You know why? Because all of a sudden, it's not just up to us. It's not us to notice that fin. It's not up to notice it. It's not up to, all the pressure isn't on us, right? All the pressure is not on us. Man, the opportunity is wide, and there's junk in the water. The opportunity is wide, and the adversaries are many, but it's not up to you. You don't have, listen. You don't have to increase. It's not up to you to prevail mightily. The word of the Lord increased and prevailed mightily. Listen, just think about the people. Come on, just think about the people that you love. Think about the communities that we could be in. Think about the communities that Jesus, much like he did Jerusalem, is still right now today in this moment weeping over. And think about what could happen if we could just get our hearts around this idea that it's the word and the story and the person of Jesus that increases and prevails mightily. You don't have to go in by yourself. And some of you, you're in it. Again, so many of you live this. And I think all Jesus wants to do is just encourage you today. Just encourage you to stay at it. Just encourage you to say, yeah, I know, man. I see you. I'm so grateful. This is the wide open adventure we get to live. This is the wide open adventure we get to live. Because the opportunity is wide, but there are many adversaries. The opportunity is wide. You're going to be with people today. You're going to be with people tomorrow. You're going to be with people Tuesday. You're going to be with people Wednesday. Who don't yet literally know, intimately know this loving relationship, life-giving relationship with the person of Jesus who would die and rise for them. And there's a very real enemy that does not want them to know that relationship. The opportunity is wide, but the adversaries are many. But here's the deal. Here's the deal. Let's be people who get into the water celebrating that the word of God is and will increase greatly and prevail mightily. There's two things that maybe you would walk out of here with today. First one is simply this. Jesus, thanks. Thanks for the reminder. This is actually your strength, your heart, your desire. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jesus, that it's you who is actually going to increase, and I can unload that pressure, and I actually didn't need to pick it up in the first place, and I'm so sorry for wherever I got that, but Jesus, just thank you that you invite me into this and that it's in your strength. And right after that thanksgiving and right after that praise, maybe we would just simply pray, so Jesus, again, would you just help me see what you see and love how you love? Jesus, would you just help me see how you see and love how you love? Would you bow your heads and close your eyes? Let's just pray on it for a minute. Jesus, you invited us into the thing. You looked at people like us. You look at us right now as individuals, but probably more importantly, you look at us collectively as people who would say, yeah, I'm somehow a part of this thing called Journey Church. You look at us and say, man, the same way the Father sent you, you send us. And we're grateful, Jesus, that it's about you, and it's in your strength. It's in your might. You're the answer, you're the salvation, you're the forgiver, you're the hope, you're the healer, the renewer, you're the restorer, you're the energy and the vitality, you're the perspective, you're the source of the adventure, you're the source of the fun and the excitement. And we're grateful for it. And so, Jesus, we would just again today pray a prayer that it's already normal for so many, and we want to be normal for us collectively. Jesus, even today, even tomorrow, in workplaces and in schools and in neighborhoods and on teams and in evening meetings and in stores and in restaurants, Jesus, help us see what you see and love how you love. Jesus, help us see what you see and love how you love. We give ourselves to you and the wide open opportunity you've invited us into with you. We love you for it. Thank you that you want us to be a part of the action with you. We're committed to it. As people and as a collection of people, we're committed to it. We love you, Jesus. Amen. Amen, everybody? Amen.